Hi, my name is Kathleen Richardson and I'm founder of the Campaign Against Sex Robots. This is just a short video to tell you about something that we're changing in the campaign. It's a name change, but it's a very significant one. And in this very short presentation, I just want to let you know briefly into some of the reasons behind it. So just to let you know, there is some imagery and discussion about pornography in this. So if you feel you'll be offended, you may not want to continue viewing. So when I launched the campaign in 2015, I'd inherited the term sex robot from majority male thinkers who had used the term to describe what was happening between men and dolls, and these new objects that were going to be more electronically kind of exciting for these men. So this is a term that I've inherited, and I had to think critically about this term. And it's not uncommon for radical feminists to inherit terms. And we have to, the work of radical feminism is to accurately create terms and a vocabulary that accurately reflects what is going on and the descriptions that we're using around the world. So the terms sex robots, sex dolls, child sex dolls, these are all very problematic terms. So let me explain some of the thinking. Well, there's no sex because they don't have sexed bodies, they're objects. That means they don't have consciousness, they don't have sentience, they don't have sensuality. And because they don't have any sex, they don't have any relationship, they exist as as objects in the world. You can decorate the objects, you can have the object mimic certain things, and that's what I'm going to argue they do. They mimic something. And what are they mimicking? That's really what's really interesting. Also, they're not participating in any sex. Again, you can add kind of electronic puppetry, so you can create the illusion that something is mimicking, but it's not really mimicking. It can't participate in anything. It's an idea of sex, love, and relationship that is very, very problematic. So these objects embody this very, very problematic viewpoint that we seem to have normalized more widely in our culture. So what are they? Well, we think the most accurate term to describe them is porn bots. They're actually pornography. What the dolls are actually mimicking is the woman in pornography. So they're a version from this masculinist, male patriarchal point of view, a very degraded view of woman, reduced, if you like, to a form with penetrable holes that can be sold off and commercialized and circulated among men. I mean, that's basically what they are. Now, people will tell you that actually you can have love, and all this is possible with them, but there's no love possible. You cannot. Love is not possible between a human and an object, right? You can't transfer something that is ultimately humanistic into a relationship between people and things. Well, you can in a corporate pornographic world, because this pornographic worldview is really what's informing these ideas about love and relationship. And more explanation of that is in my book that's coming out next year. So certainly when you develop more electronics, you put electronics in, you add some computing algorithms into it, and you can have these objects mimic something more about what you want them to be pornographically. Now, of course, women aren't like this. There's no women in the world that's represented that exists in this form. This is a very male viewpoint of what women are, just objects that you can penetrate for pornography. And that is what's reproduced when we put more of these objects into the world. So the most correct term for them is porn bots. And the same applies to the ones that look like children. They are actually child abuse pornography. Now, we call them child abuse pornography because actually we have an age of consent. You know, children are off limits to adults. So when men want to rape children, they have to do it illegally. Now, they are supported by a vast, if you like, technological infrastructure that's enabling men to, on a mass scale today, either view the rapes of children or participate, share, and upload the rapes of children. But these objects themselves what they're mimicking is the abuse of children, the real, direct, proximate abuse of children that's taking place in the world. And what they give the men is they give the abusers a kind of version of that abuse, which they can take away. And which is why in all these occasions where you found these child abuse porn bots, you've also found men with images of child abuse, often in category A and B in the most serious crimes. Now, a problem here is that these objects, the academics are saying, actually, these could be therapeutic. So their idea of therapy is to give men who want to rape children or sexually assault children an object that looks very lifelike and similar to a child with penetrable orifices in order to help them overcome their desire to want to penetrate children and sexually assault them. Well, that's the logic of them, but this is a highly dangerous outlook. And I know, as someone who's observed how once you start framing robots as therapeutic, it becomes a vast industry. You know, states become very interested. Oh, if it's therapeutic, then it could be very helpful. Actually, framing them as therapeutic is I think, one of the most dangerous processes that are going on at the minute. The other thing as well is also with these objects, they say they're completely unrelated to what happens to women in the real world. They're completely unrelated to the abuse of children. They are versions. They give men a version of that abuse. They're like souvenirs of the abuse, or a way to, if you like, to have an experience of the abuse that they want to, that is perpetuated in pornography and abuse of children more widely. So how do we make sense of this? I think you should stop looking at porn bots as some ancestry within technology. The ancestry of porn bots is really more similar to kind of the pornographic images on pots. So in the slavers world, ancient Greece, the male citizens, they basically rape slaves, they rape children, they rape their wives, anything that their whole worldview was reflected, their way of looking at the world was reflected back to them, and other voices didn't really exist at this time. And what they did was they basically took representations of those rapes and put them on pots, and they called it sex. In the same way as we're seeing a vast sexual assault on a mass scale of women and children, and it's called sex, but it's actually rape and sexual abuse. Fortunately, today there are more voices available, and we can hear other perspectives. But these men, when they weren't actually directly raping women slaves or their wives, they could then have souvenirs of them. They could take away these pots and they could be reminded of them. They could have versions of them that they could use to gain an experience, if you like, a memory of the sexual assault that took place. And so we see with these objects, with porn bots, they're really objects that mimic, if you like, the female human being in pornography. But they're not the female human beings. There's no woman in the world that exists like this. There's no woman in the world that is reduced to the form she is in pornography. This is a very patriarchal, violent, aggressive, rapist worldview that is written large on our world and expressed through pornography. And finally, so we are now going to be moving in this direction, not immediately, but we're going to start changing. You may see a bit of both, the campaign against sex robots, campaign against porn robots. But over time, we're going to be fully reflecting these changes. And then hopefully when the book is released next year, you'll have more of an idea of why we think this is an important campaign and you should be joining us to basically ensure that female voices are reflected in technologies and what's going on more widely in society. Thank you.